Hello, hello, hello. Once again, we're back again. As I mentioned before, we're going to go back to Legend of Spyro, the Eternal Night now. So we're going to get EpicNess. Gonna give him a second chance to have his net stabilize a little bit here. Looks good on my end. Haven't seen any major issues. So hopefully it'll work out better this time.
Okay, so you're set on your end then, you're saying?
Yes. Are you back to the spot you were at earlier? I see a loading screen right now.
Yeah, wait, loading screen. I mean, I have the load successful thing up.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, I'm just going to load into the level and take it from there. Just refreshing the chat. Alrighty. So if we're all set once again, yes?
Yep, also before that, let me briefly say thank you, Chris, for the raid. Love to see it. Hope you guys enjoy. So I can give a quick introduction since a bunch of people here now I can mention. So for anyone unfamiliar, we are Spyrothon. We are the Spyro Community Marathon. This is one of our smaller one-day events. We put in a showcase series. We do these usually every June. And they're meant to be smaller one-day events that kind of highlight the shorter or smaller categories in the series. And we have, I think, 4 runs left after this, or including this. So getting close to the end, but we've still got like another 2.5 hours left. So if y'all stick around, you'll see a really, really exciting race coming up in a little bit for Spyro 3, and a couple other things to finish up. Anyways, back where we were. You good now?
Yep, and thank you, of course, to reintroduce people coming in both for this run. We had a little bit of technical difficulty earlier, so it's kind of going to be jumping in haphazard, but this is the Legend of Spyro New Game Plus. Only thing that's really important about that is that we have a different element that grants us a few moves that essentially give us infinite horizontal movement, and we're going into the second main level now. We'll be loading in and see how that goes. So with infinite horizontal movement, of course, that does sound like pretty boring, and like there has to be something to kind of accommodate for something so broken. And so a lot of things like just like the height of walls in the levels and just like how enclosed and everything is going to sort of be influential in that sense. Right now though, we are going to quickly load in and use an enemy and use a strafe jump to gain a little bit of extra height. Strafe is sort of like this. It's kind of like Z targeting in Ocarina of Time, where Spyro gets a few various moves, but you can cancel out of it and then just kind of jump in the air, so that gives us a third jump. And we're going to do what is kind of, if you're familiar with other Spyro runs, a very extreme version of wall gliding. These walls are typically way too tall for Spyro to ever surmount them with normal play, but since we have infinite horizontal movement and these have a very slight taper to them, we can gradually push ourselves out of bounds. So now we're kind of just coasting along the side of this level. This whole map is sort of winding, and you really have to know sort of your way inside and out. We're looking for a crop later in the level that's like a breakable surface, and Spyro's going to like charge into it, and since it normally kind of like takes hits and there's a melee hitbox on this move, it just kind of almost inexplicably refreshes Spyro's jump. And so we're going to use that to be able to gain a lot of height and then sort of cross over this direction, which will allow us to bypass a tutorial level there. Excuse me, that would normally be very slow and warp us somewhere else. And now we're sort of straddling between all of that and a later sector in the level. All the skips are pretty dangerous because you either go a long time without any checkpoints, or you can potentially hit other checkpoints, and so you have to be particular about that. There are, like, since you have so much freedom of movement in this negative space, much more simplistic and safer skips you can do, but I wanted to showcase the full potential here. So another doorway there to jump off of, made of wood, just consistently works out. And we're going to, while we could gain height off of this sort of plateau thing here, we're going to just sort of scoop under the side, or beneath the level, and hopefully hit a respawn trigger. Which I did, thank goodness. And then this area is kind of just a little clustered hallway, but we do have yet another tree we can take advantage of to quickly position us much higher up. This really is basically the end of the level, but there is a boss at the end which normally forces you to only use these low damage fireballs, so getting a bit of extra height to clip out of the ceiling earlier, and then we're going to actually jump on top of this giant black box, which is like a load zone for this chunk of the level, and enter in through the top, since the map all sort of like exists at once, but it's jank. Okay, come on. I need to get enough damage in there. Hopefully that's... Alright, I'm gonna have to re-enter, unfortunately. Wait. Okay. This is very precarious. Oh my god. It's okay. Yeah, that's a little bit of a soft lock there, unfortunately. So what happened there was I managed to enter the fight, but I died and it reset me to the first phase, and since it sets you at like a different side of the arena, you can't actually like just complete that boss normally at that point, so I unfortunately have to go and redo a chunk of that. Really is worst case scenario, but I'll just approach it a little more cautiously this next time here. Lots of little angles and stuff on these walls here, and just like the steepness of them makes the climb for them kind of slow, but it is the best that we have in this level because most of the walls are pretty like straight 90-degree angles, and Spyro just practically face plants against them, so no good. Even like a death there would have just either been slow or just would not really have worked for the boss. Alright. Here. I guess this does give me a moment to talk about a little bit of the nuance to the Dark Spyro stuff. So every time you have entered a grounded state, you have this like little dive move that I just did there, and you can see it gives Spyro a little bit of a burst forward because you can interrupt the animation and combine it there to you know, just get a bit more distance with each charge. However, it does decay after a period of time, and it does sort of force you along like one particular angle. So, like, even just in general, moving with Dark Spyro, you kind of are going through these little bursts. So turning has to be kind of either like gradual like that, or you can use, you can either like enter glide or use an elemental ability that would give you a bit better turning power, but all of those cost either like magic or height, and both of those are pretty crucial because we need magic, just any amount of magic to be able to charge, and then we also need the height to reach these sort of triggers here that we're going for. Alright. Going to approach this much more cautiously. Thankfully, with like good mashing, you don't like lose too much height. It's kind of more just like, I mean, you do slowly over time, so you still have to know what you're doing, but you can sort of make backups in most cases. Just Jesus Christ, not that one. All right, we're just gonna do slightly slower stretch. That should leave us. Knocked me out of that, though. Come on. Okay, sweet. Woo! Just enough time there. So, besides being, like, forced out of the floating state, you do also want to die there, actually, well, partially. You start a death, and then the cutscene interrupts it, and what that will end up doing is refilling your health and magic, which kind of lets us spam this guy out a little bit better. Unfortunately, you can't damage him during that cutscene, and it forces you into this fireball spewing mode again, which, as you could see, deals significantly less in terms of chunks of damage. So, kind of just some general magic management and little bit of RNG on this last part here. We're gonna hope for this stomping attack where he takes a bit more damage by being more vulnerable. Alright, cool. That will at least sort of make up for some of the nonsense that we faced. Thank you again, everybody, for being so patient. Alright, so that was sort of a long-winded and complex level. Now this next one is going to be a bit more, like, it's sort of straightforward, but it's also very precise, because we have to climb a singular long piece of collision that's only about 2 body lengths wide, and we also have to bait a couple enemies that have, like, infamously long range and near perfect accuracy that could snipe us out of the sky as we get to our dirty work here. So we're going to bait them into an attack and then use a bit of our slowdown capabilities, as weird as that is perhaps to say for Spyro. We can see... Okay, there we go. Try and get in along the middle of this chain so that we don't fall off too soon. And there we go. Alright, just need to cleanly pop in over the corner there so we don't hit a death trigger. And then we have only partially leveled this area now, so all of the invisible walls are gone, thank goodness, and we can kind of slip in over the back and hit this cutscene trigger that normally requires a bomb to drop. So that is probably the single biggest skip in the game, and I'm glad to have actually gotten that first try. There isn't too much of an alternative there, as it skips several bosses, since it is a combat arena. Okay, this is... Okay. Kind of had to bullshit the end of that boss, but got in enough damage. But yeah, that skip alone saves about, like, 15 minutes over any percent, and you're skipping, like, a whole extra tutorial level, several platforming things, and yeah. And of course, that was supposed to be a boss with 2 health bars, but with all of our moves upgraded and just the general overpowered, like, post-game crap that Dark Spyro permits, and being able to combine those, it very much trivializes it. Speaking of trivial, this is a fairly easy level compared to those last 2, since the level is sort of like this open ship-to-ship challenge thing that you just glide to. We're able to take advantage of that, you know, open space that already exists. But there is still some complexity. For whatever reason, Chrome Studios kind of made a lot of things have collision, which you typically can't access, or perhaps it's just been copy-pasted assets, but those ropes you can jump off of, and the reason this is important is because typically you'd have to land on that ship that I just passed to be able to get past a giant death barrier that you use one of these passenger boats to pass through, and it's incredibly tall, and honestly, that had been the strat for a while, but being able to jump over it just makes this that much more of a cakewalk. The other thing as far as general movement goes, I suppose, I was starting to mention about height loss, and so, you know, mashing to minimize the space between these charges, and just your general time so that you don't decay as much momentum, and all sorts of nonsense like that, is very widely applicable over the entire course of the run, and needing to land to regain some of your movement options, like the dive, like this little comet dash thing I'm doing here, which is just kind of like a fire version of the Dark Spyro charge, except it's like a one-time use. Alright, we had to kind of also do a little bit of awkward movement in terms of having to just drop height a lot, because this is our destination, and it looks like Scab did not fare too well in his second bout, but we'll give him a few brownie points for trying. Anyway, at this point we're probably only 20 minutes into the run, and we've already completed 2/3 of the game. This last third, however, is going to be a bit more of a doozy, because the levels are a bit more restrictive. So this is one of those dream levels I had mentioned as far as tutorials, and they restrict you to using only regular element moves, but there's plenty of jank to still be had. As you're seeing here, the electricity element has a vortex move where whenever it lands on any sort of surface, it treats you as grounded, including off of slippery surfaces. So if we're crafty, okay, well, I can at least glide this back and reset. Just wait for our magic to refill a little bit. Oh, wow, that tricked me up. It's a little hard to tell sometimes just with the curvature of this thing. Alright, fine. Set that up again.
Alright, let's do
This
it.
lightning dream in general just acts as a very high reset point for runs because of the execution. Having to switch from electricity to... Oh my god, what happened? Ate my jump. Having to switch from electricity to fire to get that comet dash out, that's very important for covering distances, and you sort of have to claw over to the D-pad in order to reselect those elements.
Here we go.
So this is very much not a beginner-friendly strat. Okay, there we go. I kind of had to curve the glide over a little bit. Anyway, with it being a linear game, all of the flags are available, so we can just kind of continue into the level now, having all of our elements available, so we can actually still do some Comet Dash related shenanigans. I mentioned height gain is difficult in this game, but this may prove otherwise. Okay, well, that sent me off very far to the side. So this whole lightning jump thing is sort of this little oversight of sorts where whenever Spyro enters an air combo, he kind of locks on to the enemy or whatever. Well, there's a short period of time where even after launching an enemy, you're still targeting them, and Spyro's... there we go. I just had too much speed to really cut there. But yeah, you're still targeted and can interact with the enemy, and Spyro's finisher move actually sort of brings him to where the enemy's current position is, which in this case is way up in the sky, and still leaves you actionable. So there, I was able to cancel the horn dive into a Comet Dash, which pushes us really far forward, since you're combining two really powerful forward forms of momentum. I was able to cross a very... There we go. Very tight gap there. Same with just like mating that Comet Dash to like ledge grab that curved ledge. Just like a little optimization distance thing. And to close out the Lightning Dream here, going to bait an enemy over, and kind of have to use a little bit of this slow-mo stuff in order to actually have the enemy be in range. Okay, did not get enough height there. Unfortunately, had dragged the enemy down with a melee attack, which prevented them from actually launching up. And, like, the difference between that is really, like, infinitesimal, so...
Let's keep trying.
Thankfully, we respawn here with not too much trouble, though. Alright. And these turbo glides are pretty, like... That's what I call the cancel there. Are pretty risky because you do kind of have to cut off some of your height gain because the animation starts as Spyro is rising. You saw he kind of started going forwards before the enemy there, but oh well, that is what it is. Now this next level will appear simple at first, but it's actually sort of this whole Trials gimmick, which will end up having like much more dense and troublesome flags as far as like how it checks that you complete this level. Because, you know, they want you to actually have to deal with testing all of your elements' prowesses. So this is going to be straightforward, but where we're going is actually like just below the room that would normally have the trigger to end the level. But that trigger does not actually exist until you beat the boss that unlocks after you beat all of these trials. But that's the thing, even though the boss is just below this little alcove we're going into, it does not spawn unless 4 trials are beaten. So we kind of have to go in here, which is the sort of domain at the end of each trial where you fight king of each element per se. And that will count as defeating one of the trials. In this case, it defaults to electric. And also bring us back to the hub. So now we still have to do a few trials without Dark Spyro, but that does give us room for some more like down-to-earth and nuanced movement. Ice itself does not necessarily offer anything in the same way that the Comet Dash does, but you still will get to see sort of like some... you'll get to see some epilepsy, I guess. I'm sorry for this being optimal. Just balance kind of goes out of the room whenever you introduce late game upgrades.
You're toast.
We're gonna try and combine like magic and melee attacks though, since they do both have their own set of hitboxes and like operate on separate cooldowns. The whole deal with this one is to light 3 orbs to open a door using some of your elemental magic. They want you to go across that pool there, but there's a little notch in the ledge there that you can take use of. And then here we're gonna try and... Yep, got a nice snipe there without having to ride platform around that you line up with the rocks there for. You can actually like go to where this door is that we're opening early, but the thing is, with that lack of extra movement capabilities and everything, you do not actually have a way around said door. So, yeah. I'm just using the air attack here to interrupt their double jump so that we spend less time airborne and can be on the ground where most of our speed lies whenever we're absent from Dark Spyro. Just doing a bit of slowdown to try to catch that button crab to open this portal without it running away, intercepting it. Alright. Gonna abuse the ice kind of like hitting this... The ice ball kind of hitting this gem cluster will like have a weak hit, which will like give us a few gems, but it won't actually break the crystal. So we can kind of just spam that there. Now it is worth mentioning that you can actually access these levels out of bounds through Dark Spyro, but the issue with that also is that the trials are actually located behind the start of the level, and there's a giant invisible wall there which you can get around. However, you know, this is at the opposite end of the level, so realistically, you could like go behind the level and then complete one of those trials with Dark Spyro, and then it would warp you back here, and then skip one with the floating platform from before. But this actually ends up being faster because it's just like a whole lot of extra movement. So very curious. So we're kind of going to have a little bit more dynamic of magic use here because we want to use the, even though it's only like one charge worth and it consumes magic, it's still like very good for crossing gaps and just like generally is faster than Spyro's sprint. Or I know that's pretty sacrilege to call it that, but you know, ooh, nice. So we're actually just kind of going to like mash on the fire breath because that still deals most of its damage. It just drains it a lot less, and we want to have that for movement. Okay, whatever. I was trying to lock on to that enemy so I could do a triple jump of sorts to skip over this very large cutscene trigger, but no matter. I'm supposed to kind of glide down there and do this tight little puzzle platforming, or whatever you'd want to call it, where you light these torches. Again, just using this air attack to give us a little bit more height and distance. All that kind of stuff. Alrighty. Pretty straightforward stuff, I guess. Alright. Trying to have like good levels of magic coming out of there because those enemies are just not required, and well, we can spam Comet Dash up this way a bit. Oh, weird camera angle. And, you know, just surpass a lot of this sooner. Alright, I guess we'll wait on the cycle. It also kind of locks you into one direction, which will be important here and just generally because it has several like strong melee hitboxes attached to it, but to actually land them, you know, you kind of have to be centered on the body, so it rewards you in the sense of having its extra hits, but also, if you're able to manage to hit an enemy from a further distance, since that's even harder, it actually, the enemies will take even further damage. I like to think of it as sort of like this sneak attack and just like precision of angles thing. Sorry once again for all the flashbangs. I wish the effects were not like that. Anyway, well, the trials have been nice, and so is the gameplay, but I want a quick little look at the menu just to catch my breath. Alright, that's enough. So, alright, jokes aside, what I'm actually doing here is I'm reloading the level from an autosave point. And the way autosaving works in this game is, since, as I've said before, the game is traditionally very linear, it just kind of puts you at where that checkpoint is. It treats all the, you know, the next flags as though it would normally, but all of the previous ones are reopened. So I'm actually going to use this perfectly shaped archway, fly through some small gaps in the collision, and hey, what do you know, this platform down here we used before is back. And another odd thing about the flags is that it only seems to keep track of a handful of the trials rather than all of them. So I can just kind of do that electricity skip twice. So maybe a slight omission in regards to our capacity to mess with those flags, but, you know, it was still fun. Oh, nice. Okay, so this boss is kind of like this big RNG wall, because, well, you want to just use Earth since it's the best, like, single-target DPS in the game. It drains all of your magic, but when it comes to bosses, it's really good. It's supposed to be this move that you swing along Spyro, and it has high knockback and, you know, a decent chunk of damage, kind of give yourself some space and crowd control, right? But its hitbox comes out frame 1, so it, in practice here, it ends up acting almost like spamming Fox's Shine just directly in front of you. So, I mean, the other elements are able to put out good damage, but nothing can quite compare to that when you're dealing with bosses. And for this final level, with it being a mountain fortress, it is more vertically, like the progression in it is more vertical. And as I've said, height is our enemy, our little obstacle. So we're gonna start by kind of jumping off of that bramble and going in over the roof of this mountain fortress. This is going to be a fairly lengthy skip. Thankfully, even though stuff has deloaded, objects in the game sort of load earlier and interdependently, so we can kind of use a few gem crystals to give us a general idea. Turn there, and then we're looking for this green crystal down here. And we're going to try and, like, move the camera around, try to force the level to load in. We might need to move around a little bit. If this doesn't work, there is a much safer version. Okay, it looks like I popped out of bounds, but the area didn't load, so I'm going to try going to this other end of the area. Oh, man. Thank you for the good luck, by the way. Should be around here. There's a good handful of things that can just strangely go wrong. Hopefully that's okay. I guess there's nothing there. Even though that's the path of crystals I normally follow.
Why don't you try shooting some magic out of your face?
Thankfully I did at least practice this a little bit before, so that I would know some backups, but I don't know, I guess I was slightly off of where that floor is. Unfortunate. We're gonna give it one more try. It's very funny, because we actually, like, we're going to the back half of this level, but the place we want to go is actually, like, right at the front. Can I see things, please? Okay, well, similar scenario as the last time. I'm going to make sure I'm actually, like, close to this wall. Okay, we did land on something. We hit a cutscene trigger, but I might be in dead zone. Okay, thank goodness, we hit the save point there. Alrighty. See if we can get the swag matrix jump back up. One more? Alright, fine. You can jump off one of these bombs to get to the top of this spiraling mountain. Oh, man, that's a lot of damage. This is part of the sort of like the skill ceiling, I would say, of this game. As much as you can, like, know a few specific paths and everything,
Hey, try not to die
being
again.
just, like, proficient with your general movement and having, like, good backups and everything will really help in the long run with consistency and just, like, being able to save runs. Because all of these tricks, as you've seen, can be pretty volatile. Anyway, landing there. Oh yeah, I'll let you know about time. We're actually going to use this mountainside to climb up, but we're actually going to need more height than even just this mountain thing goes. So remember what I was saying about levels going inside out? Well, that's very literal, because once you clip out of bounds here, collision literally inverts. So any of these walls that would be like sloped upwards when inbounds would slope downwards, and well, there's a giant casing around the exterior here that typically slopes downwards and just kind of like forces you to you know, fall into the death pit and not do anything jank. But since we're sort of in a limbo out of bounds, we can just climb this even higher. And we saved the horn dive all this time so that we can redirect ourselves back towards the front of the level. And like I was saying, we wanted to get to somewhere there. Well, the reason we had to go through all these errands is that you have to be careful not to load too much of the front half here. There's a giant death barrier and invisible wall, so you have to kind of like load the back part of the level so that stuff deloads, but then having the back part, this whole area you will see is kind of enclosed by this cliffside, so we have to come from the front, and we have to be careful not to trigger this boss right around here. Okay, well, I guess we did trigger it, but it should only be... Are you serious? Oh wait, I might be able to die here and then respawn him. What's going on? What a jank game, guy.
It's okay. We can try again.
I'm so sorry. Oh, cool. Don't do the infinite charge. I would have thought at least I hit, like, a respawn trigger there if I hit the boss trigger, but I guess those are separate. That's alright. I'm gonna make it work. Alrighty. Here we go. Spyro's coming around the mountain. Here he comes. Just kind of tapering my charges so that I get better turning here. And right on up. There we go. So you can kind of get an idea of how tense this nonsense can get at the highest level. Yeah, I still need my visual cue. Thank you. I'm gonna go between these two peaks here. Not veer off too much to the right like I had ended up doing. Okay, there we go. There we go. Thing is, this area is actually like kind of smaller and harder to land on, but I've just done it more so it's more consistent for me, I suppose. Anyway, this is kind of our only reprieve, really, in the run, is just having these sort of floating platforms or whatever, because this is way too tall to really surmount, and you can't really get any height off of it. And thankfully, since the level hasn't fully loaded in, it just starts you at a good cycle. Time to relax is over, because I have to time a double jump at the top here to push up a side of the cliff and skip one of the other floating ones. So just for safety, I'm going to grab a little bit of extra magic, because there is a lot of turning in this final out of bounds. I'm going to use our trusty archway that we've seen with the lightning vortex jumps and all sorts of other nonsense like the trials, and just use it in the beam to turn, and here we are. This is the final, like, mountainous area. Okay, not landing up there. Just gonna land here. Hello? Okay, here we go. Final boss incoming. Now there is a cutscene trigger down here. However, I am going to do something a little ballsy here. And that is, for whatever inexplicable reason, this statue has a similar property to all the wood we jumped off earlier. We're going to use these rocks that are typically just decoration. Alter our angle a little bit. It is close. Like, probably 4 more minutes. Try not to clip back in bounds too far. That is a very thin wall. And we have to curve in over here. Okay. And just along the edges here. And then we're going to climb up this cocooning wall along Gull's fortress. And what this does is skips that 1-minute cutscene down there. Is normally a nice little spot to stretch right at the end of the run, but it's a minute-long cutscene, so we're just going to fly right in here. And that is the final out of bounds in the game. We're not going to have to do any other nonsense. It's just this tough little fight here. So Gull is similarly restrictive in that he actually removes all of your magic capabilities. So we're going to try and sort of bait his AI to do like a bunch of attacks and other nonsense to try and force him to do his jumps earlier and also just get in some chip damage. Normally he just kind of goes, whoops, well that's funny. Guess you get a little cinematic shot after all this. There we go. That was some really good chip damage. Gonna try and follow the guy, although probably not too hard because he does have a near one-shot move. We're gonna try and stagger our air and ground combo stuff so that we just have the steady string. And that is looking very good for a potential 2 cycle, which is normally really tight, but okay. That should get him to attack. Alright, I'm not going to risk it. Okay. 4. There we go. There we go, 2 cycle Gull. Thank goodness, he's nasty. And then just one final setup to try and get an infinite combo here. Kinda has to be right as he starts this, otherwise he'll warp around and be obnoxious. So once you kinda get like high enough on him, the game's just like, okay, well you're getting your air combo, might as well just teleport away after you are done, let you get the full punishment. But since we kept ice, we can still do the Dark Spyro nonsense, and if we angle our energy beam correctly, he'll take an extra chunk of damage. And there we go, that is time! Oh my goodness, that was quite the journey. Not everything can be anticipated when you have a category that broken. But, I'm still pretty proud of how that went, I suppose. Sorry that everything was so spastic and there was so much to talk about. It just didn't... There's so much going on in such a short period of time. It's very difficult to account for everything. Thank you again for dealing with all of the technical issues and everything. I hope that you got something out of it.
We definitely did. I'm really
difficult.
glad that worked out in the end, because that was actually really interesting overrun.
Thank you for saying
I had
so.
no idea to what extent this was broken.
I mean, neither did I when I first started. There was only just a post that this glitch existed, and most everything shown has been, you know, routed by myself and whatever, and it's been really fun. I'm glad to finally be able to show off some years of work. I'd also like to, if I may take this chance to mention that I have recently started a Discord for the Legend of Spyro console speedrunning series, and hope to be, you know, collecting, you know, equally determined people and putting up some resources for everything now. It's still sort of a work in progress, but
Yeah, by all means, if you
glad
want to drop
to-
an invite, go ahead.
alright,
Yeah,
sweet.
You can grab that and post that after we're done here. But yeah, anything else?
Well, I'm always free to, you know, chat with people and listen to any questions or whatever you have. Definitely that Discord is going to be a good place to get things going. It's a little small now, but it is definitely been steadily picking up stream. It's only really existed for like a month and already has almost 20 people, so pretty good. Just trying to find my my invite here.
Yeah, well, okay, well, while you find that, I think we can transition off to the big screen here so we can get Bread Ghost all set up. Gonna keep the trend so far from this event and just kind of go through as quick as possible, since everyone's pretty much good to go for the next run, I think. So we'll be back in probably just a minute or two.
Sorry for the delay. Everybody take good care, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for the run.
No problem.
Alrighty, so like I said, up next we got Spyro Attack of the Rhinox. That'll be the last handheld game we'll be showing off today. That will be done by Bread Ghost. Should be a pretty quick category and pretty quick setup, so we'll be right back.